Keanu Reeves arrived at a motorcycle dealership located in a distant city where he was scheduled to start filming a movie, dressed simply and casually, with a cap trying to disguise his identity. He went unnoticed by the salesperson to the attendant. He seemed just another curious onlooker, wasting the precious time that could be dedicated to more suitably customers. However, what would happen during this visit would not only make the salesperson deeply regret their behavior, but also reveal the truth. That would change everything. Before we continue this story, let us know where you are watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another special story for you. After a long day on the film set, Keanu Reeves decided to take advantage of the sunny afternoon to explore the small town wearing a discreet cap to avoid being recognized. He walked through the quiet streets, observing the shops and the slow pace of the place. Despite all the effort at work, something was missing. His motorcycle, which had stayed in Los Angeles, felt like an impossible absence to ignore. Riding was not just a hobby, it was an essential part of who he was feeling. The wind on his face, the rumble of the engine, and the freedom the toe wheels provided at that moment. Keanu needed this more than anything else. When he spotted an imposing store at the end of the street. Aurora Motor Urs read the golden sign, shimmering in the sun. The facade, modern and luxurious, was surrounded by glass walls that revealed high-standard motorcycles displayed on illuminated pedestals. This was the perfect place to find what he was looking for. Keanu entered through the automatic door, and a bell gently rang, announcing his presence. The interior of the store was even more impressive. The white marble floor, shone under the lights, and the gleaming motorcycles seemed more like pieces of art than mere machines. Every detail of the place exuded exclusivity. Keanu walked through the showroom, admiring the models around him, until a cold voice interrupted his moment. "Good afternoon," said a salesman, approaching with measured steps. He was still dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, and his expression carried a mix of forced professionalism and superiority. "May I help you?" Keanu adjusted his cap, keeping his tone calm. "Looking for a motorcycle to buy something classic, perhaps something that combines power and freedom?" The salesman raised an eyebrow, clearly assessing Keanu from head to toe. Cap, the simple clothes, the unpretentious demeanor, all seemed out of place for the standards he expected. A slight smile, but there was something condescending in his posture. "Ah, of course," he said with a tone of false cordiality. "Well, our motorcycles are exclusive, you know. We only work with high-standard models. We usually cater to clients who are looking for something really special." He paused, letting few words hang, as if implying that Keanu might not fit that profile. Keanu, calm, used to being judged by the simplicity of his appearance, he decided not to react to the comment. "I understand. Do you also work with rentals?" "Just curious." The salesman let out a short, dry laugh, almost mocking. "No, sir, we definitely do not deal with rentals. Aurora Motors is a luxury dealership where our clients buy motorcycles, and well, our bikes require a considerable investment, but perhaps I can show you some more basic options." The insinuation was clear, and Keanu detected the arrogant tone in the salesman's voice. He took a deep breath, ignoring that discomfort, and responded calmly, "Thank you, but I'd like to see the best models you have. I'm interested in something special." The salesman narrowed his eyes, clearly annoyed that he had not managed to intimidate Keanu. He stepped aside, indicating that Keanu should follow him. "Very well, but I must warn you, our motorcycles are not for just anyone." This way. They stopped in front of a Ducati Panigale Far for a sports motorcycle with aggressive design and cutting-edge technology. The salesman pointed to the machine with a dramatic gesture. "This is a Panigale V for one of our most sophisticated models. It combines impeccable design with the highest technology. It's for those who truly understand motorcycles and value exclusivity." He cast a sidelong glance at Keanu, as if doubting that he fit that profile. Keanu examined the motorcycle attentively, but shook his head slightly. "It's beautiful, but it's not what I'm looking for. I want something more classic, something that connects me." Tough road. The salesman sighed, visibly impatient. "Right, perhaps something more basic is what you need." He walked to a Harley-Davidson Fatboy 114, a robust motorcycle with chrome details. "This is a Harley-Davidson Fatboy, iconic of course, a reliable model, nothing too extraordinary, but it might meet what you're looking for." Keanu ran his hand over the handlebars of the Harley, ignoring the vendor's disdainful tone. He felt a smile form as he examined its bike. "This has what I'm looking for." "It has sold." The salesman arched an eyebrow. surprised by Keanu's enthusiasm. "Well, if that's what you want, we can arrange a test drive, but I must warn, our policy for test drives is strict. We don't just hand these motorcycles over to anyone." He smirked sarcastically. As if testing Keanu's patience, the salesman walks away, leaving in the air the doubt whether Keanu will really get the test drive. The salesman's arrogance and judgment make it clear that he won't be a facilitator, but an obstacle. After a long wait, beside the Harley-Davidson fat boy, observing every detail of the motorcycle, Keanu Reeves was finally approached. Again by the salesman, who now wore an even stiffer expression. He carried an air of superiority, as if the response he was about to give was definitive. "Sir," he began, adjusting the cuffs of his suit. "I spoke with the manager, and unfortunately, we cannot authorize the test drive. Our policy is very clear on this." Keanu slightly furrowed his breath. "And what exactly is this policy?" he asked calmly. The salesman sighed, visibly annoyed by the persistence. "Only customers who meet certain criteria can ride our bikes. This includes having thin accessory experience to handle machines as powerful as these. It's not a personal decision, of course, just following the company's rules." Keanu remained calm, but his voice took on a firmer tone. "I understand the need for safety, but I think we can resolve this simply. I can assure you that I have the necessary to ride this motorcycle." The salesman managed to force a smile, but his words were condescending. "Oh really? And what exactly is that experience? With all due respect, riding a Harley-Davidson fat boy is not for everyone." Keanu tilted his head, sizing up the salesman. He realized that man was more interested in challenging him than solving the problem. "I've ridden all types of motorcycles in various situations," Keanu replied with calculated calmness. "I believe this won't be a problem for me." But the salesman seemed determined to belittle him. "I understand, sir, but unfortunately, that's not enough. We have responsibilities towards our vehicles and our clients. We can't just release such an exclusive bike without the necessary guarantees." Keanu realized it was not just a matter of policy. The salesman was clearly trying to impose a personal judgment on him. He took a deep breath, controlling his irritation, and spoke calmly again. "I'm not asking for privileges. I'm asking for a fair Chanchetto test. The bike, before buying its standard procedure, isn't it?" The salesman hesitated, but still maintained his superior tone. "Yes sir, it is standard buttonly under appropriate circumstances. I need to follow the manager's guidelines. It's not personal, as I said before." Keanu realized he was being purposefully challenged. He knew the situation wasn't about rules, but about the salesman's limited perception of him. For a moment, he considered leaving the store. After all, he was not obliged to deal with such an attitude. Something inside him made him persist. He wanted to prove that sometimes standing your ground was the best response to prejudice. "I understand," said Keanu calmly, "but if you're going to follow these guidelines, I would like to speak directly with the manager. I think he can clarify this policy better." Their request was straightforward, and the salesman's smile completely vanished. He had not expected Keanu to be so forthright. "The manager is very busy at the moment," he replied, trying to cut the matter short. Keanu tilted his head, maintaining his firm stance. "That's fine. I'll wait." The tension in the showroom was palpable. Other employees had begun to notice the exchange between Keanu and the salesman, and some whispered among themselves. Keanu stepped forward, facing salesman without losing his composure. "Let me be direct. Is this really about the store's policy? Is it about what you think of me?" The salesman's eyes widened, caught off guard by the question. He tried to disguise his discomfort, but his stiff posture betrayed him. "Sir, as I said, it's not personal. We're just following our rules." But Keanu noticed the hesitation in his voice. He knew he had struck a nerve, and though he wasn't interested in creating a scene, he was also not willing to be dismissed without a valid reason. Reeves remained next to the Harley-Davidson fat boy, observing each detail of the motorcycle. The salesman, Andrew, crossed his arms and stood a few feet away, sporting a nearly mocking smile. The showroom was quiet, but the atmosphere felt charged. It was as if every word spoken by Andrew dripped with judgment. "Sir, as I have mentioned before," Andrew began, adjusting his tie and lifting his chin, "these motorcycles aren't for just anyone. A certain level of experience and commitment is required. Handle them. We're talking about high-performance machines." Keanu looked up from the motorcycle and stared at the salesman. His expression was neutral, but there was a spark of controlled irritation in his eyes. "I understand that, but what exactly makes you believe I don't have enough experience?" Andrew chuckled. Briefly, as if his question was absurd, he stepped forward and slightly tilted his head, his tone full of condescension. "With all due respect, sir, your appearance doesn't inspire much confidence. This Harley, for example, has Milwaukee 8114 engine high torque, and it's not something just anyone can handle. It practice, and more than that, it requires the right profile." "The right profile," Keanu repeated calmly. He knew exactly what the salesman meant, but decided to give him the chance to explain. Andrew shrugged, glancing at Keanu's cap and simple clothes. "You know how it is, our customers tend to be people who value prestige and exclusivity. It's not just about riding the bike, it's about representing it, you understand?" Keanu was silent for a moment. Kicking in the words, he tilted his head slightly, as if evaluating the salesman. Thorn, with a tone bordering on challenging, he responded, "And what exactly makes you think I wouldn't reprint this motorcycle?" Andrew blinked, clearly caught off guard by the direct question, but he quickly regained his composure, forcing a tense smile. "Well, let's see. You came in here asking about renting bikes. That's not something our regular customers do. They come here with the intent to buy without hesitation. Plus," he paused, eyeing Keanu up and down again, "let's just say your style is a bit too casual for Aurora Motors." Keanu took a deep breath, controlling the growing irritation. He knew Andrew was using his appearance as an excuse to belittle him, so basically saying, "I don't look like I can afford or handle this bike, right, Andrew Lord?" Again, now not disguising the sarcasm. "Don't get me wrong, sir. I just believe this bike requires a certain kind of commitment, and so far, I haven't seen anything that suggests you're uptight." Other customers and employees began to pay more attention to the exchange. The whispers were discreet but constant. An older man standing near a Triumph crossed his arms and watched the interaction with a mix of curiosity and displeasure. Keanu leaned forward slightly, looking directly into Andrew's eyes. His voice was still low and combat carried an unmistakable weight. "Don't you think you're being a bit quick to judge someone you've just met?" Andrew seemed to hesitate for a brief second, but quickly restored his arrogant posture. "Sir, I'm not judging. I'm just doing my job and protecting the interests of the store door. After all, it's my duty to ensure that our motorcycles are handed over to the right hands." Keanu let out a slight chuckle. "Humorless, the right hands. Interesting." He stepped away from the motorcycle and crossed his arms, as if evaluating the salesman. "Don't you think that, before drawing conclusions, you should at least give me a fair chance to prove my ability?" Andrew was visibly uncomfortable. His pride did not allow him to back down. "Sir, these motorcycles are not toys, and the test drive isn't something we just hand out to anyone, especially when there is no guarantee that the client can, in fact, purchase the vehicle." The silence that followed was all messy. Keanu stared at Andrew for a long moment without looking away, finally asked with piercing calmness, "And what exactly makes you believe I can't buy this motorcycle?" Andrew tried to mask his nervousness by adjusting in his tie. Again, he took a step back but still tried to maintain control of the situation. "Well, don't take this the wrong way, but customers usually demonstrate a certain lifestyle that accompanies these machines. It's something that, with all due respect, doesn't seem to be your case." Andrew's tone was incredibly clandestine, and now more people in the showroom were fully focused on the conversation. An older customer who had been observing everything closely shook his head in disapproval. Another younger customer muttered something to his wife, who seemed equally shocked. Keanu stepped forward, closing the distance between him and Andrew. His voice remained calm, but there was an undeniable firmness to it. "Let me ask you something, Andrew. Is all this resistance you're showing really about the store's policy, or is it about what you think?" Andrew's eyes widened, clearly caught off guard by the direct question. He tried to cover up, but it was obvious he had been cornered. "Sir, as I've said, this isn't personal. We're just following the rules that you seem to be interpreting your way," Keanu retorted, still without raising his voice. "Because so far all you've given me are excuses." The tension in the showroom had reached its peak. Everyone present was attentive to the exchange, and it was clear that Andrew was starting to lose control of the situation. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say anything, a firm voice sounded from behind them. "What's going on here?" All eyes turned to the store manager, James Carter, who approached with firm steps and a serious expression. He appeared uncomfortable with the atmosphere that had formed, but maintained his authoritative posture. Andrew Carter continued, casting a stern look at the salesman. "I want to hear exactly what's going on." Andrew swallowed hard, adjusting his stance. "Mr. Carter, I was just explaining our test drive policy to the customer. He insists on riding the bike, but the manager intervenes, but still does not recognize Keanu. Andrew's posture becomes even more uncomfortable. As everyone's attention is focused on the situation, the question hangs in the air: will the manager handle this fairly, or will he follow the sick prejudiced line as his salesman James Carter, the store man, been observing the interaction from a distance, but as he approached to intervene he recognized who Keanu Reeves was. This realization added a new dimension to his behavior, an urgency. "Torsoled the situation, Mr. Reeves. I'm James Carter, the manager of the store," he began, extending his hand. Now clearly aware of Keanu's fame, James's expression showed a mix of respect and embarrassment. Upon realizing he was dealing with a renowned Hollywood actor, "I apologize for not intervening sooner. I would like to understand better what happened here directly from you." Keanu accepted the handshake, and with the calmness befitting his reputation, began to recount the events. "Thank you for stepping in, Mr. Carter. As I was explaining, I entered with an interest in buying a motorcycle, but the conversation quickly turned to doubts about my ability and intention. Based on quite clear preconceptions by your salesman." James listened attentively. The growing discomfort on his face was evident, especially now that he knew Keanu was. The attention of other customers and employees in the showroom intensified. All aware of the seriousness of the situation, "This does not reflect the values we uphold here at Aurora Motors," James stated, turning to look at Andrew with a clear look of disapproval. "Our goal is to treat all customers with respect and impartiality, regardless of their fame or appearance." Andrew, realizing the mistake in Keanu's identity, began to get visible more nervous. He tried to interrupt, possibly to justify himself, but James raised his hand, silencing him again. "That's not how we operate here, Andrew. I will personally arrange the test drive for Mr. Reeves. I want to ensure that he receives the treatment that any customer would deserve, but especially someone who clearly has a passion and respect for motorcycles, as Mr. Reeves has demonstrated." James turned his attention back to Keanu, offering an immediate and personal solution. Please allow me to correct this right away. I will ensure that the test drive happens without any further complications." Keanu, maintaining his composure, "Thank the manager. I appreciate your promptness, Mr. Carter. It is refreshing to see that leadership is willing to step in and do what is right." With the situation redirected towards a positive conclusion, James signaled for one of the employees to prepare the Harley-Davidson in the external parking lot. "Everything is ready for your test drive, Mr. Reeves," he said, now with a tone that carried both respect and an implicit apology for any earlier inconvenience. As Keanu headed to the tension in the environment began to dissipate, turning into a buzz of discussions about proper conduct with all customers, famous or not. Keanu, preparing for the test drive, gave a final look at James and Andrew, a silent reminder of the importance of fair assessments and equal treatment. Ash started the bike. The sound of the engine filled the space, reaffirming Keanu's passion for motorcycles, and concluding the incident with a powerful note of mutual respect and understanding. Keanu gently accelerated out of Aurora Motors, leaving behind the tension of the showroom. The engine of the Harley-Davidson Fat Boy roared like a symphony, filling the void he had felt since arriving in that town. The quiet streets opened up before him, and the motor seemed to glide along the road, responding to every movement of his hands and feet. It was exactly what he needed: freedom, simplicity, and connection. As he rode, Keanu began to reflect on the situation he had just experienced. It wasn't about the motorcycle or the test drive itself, it was about how he had been treated. The judgment he faced in the showroom wasn't a new experience. He knew how his casual appearance often made people underestimate who he was. However, what bothered him more was the fact that this attitude wasn't just a reflection of the salesman, but of something bigger, a system that valued appearances and prejudices over humanity and respect. The road opened up to a wider area surrounded by green fields and some trees. Keanu felt the wind on his face, a reminder of why he loved riding so much. It was in these moments that he connected with the present, with the life around him. He knew that this feeling of freedom was priceless, and it was a thing that Andrew, the arrogant salesman, probably would never understand. Keanu turned onto a small side road, throttled to a roadside cafe. He parked the Harley near the entrance, turned off the engine, and carefully dismounted before he could remove his helmet. A group of young people sitting at a nearby table began to whisper, "Hey, is that one of them?" started, staring intently at Keanu as he removed his helmet and adjusted his hair. "No way," another exclaimed, nearly knocked over her cup of coffee. "It's him, it's Keanu Reeves." Keanu gave a sigh, smile, realizing he had been recognized. He politely waved to the group and walked up to the cafe counter where he ordered a simple black coffee. The young people, clearly excited, hesitated for a few moments before approaching. "Excuse me, on F them," said, holding up a cell phone as if ready to ask for a photo. "You're Keanu Reeves, right? I mean, we are huge fans of your work." Keanu gave a warm smile and nodded. "Yes, that's me. It's a pleasure." Tommy too, his humility in response seemed to disarm the group. They started talking about their favorite movies, mentioning how Matrix and John Wick had impacted their lives. Keanu listened patiently, thanking them for each comment and asking genuine questions about what they liked most in the films. "You seem so laid back," one of them remarked, almost surprised. "I mean, you're one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, but here you are riding a bee just like any ordinary person." Keanu chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I'm just a guy who likes to ride. No matter what I do in my career, these moments on the road are what keep me connected to the world. This is where I feel most myself." They took a few photos and Keanu made sure to thank them for the interaction before heading back to his bike. As he climbed onto the Harley, waved to the group, who still seemed impressed by the actor's humility as he returned to the road. Keanu felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Moments like this, real interactions without filters or judgments, were what he valued most. He knew that true wealth was in how he treated others and was treated in return, and that's when an idea began to form in his mind. Perhaps there was a way to turn what happened at Aurora Motors into something positive. The road led him back to town, and Keanu felt the Harley respond perfectly to every curve and acceleration. The bike was not just a machine, it was a reflection of freedom and simplicity, exactly what he was looking for. When he finally arrived back at the parking lot of Aurora Motors, he turned off the engine and sat for a moment, reflecting on what he would say to the manager. Keanu dismounted the motorcycle and walked back into the room. Inside, the atmosphere seemed tense. James Carter, the manager, was nervous, counter-waiting patiently. Andrew, the arrogant salesman, was at the back, arms crossed, and a mix of frustration and discomfort on his face. Other employees and customers looked on from a distance, curious to see what would happen next. Keanu removed his helmet and held it in one hand while he walked directly to James. His posture was relaxed, but there was clear determination in his eyes. "I like the bike," he began with a slight smile, "but before discussing any purchase, I think we need to talk about something more important." James frowned, clearly intrigued. "Of course, Mr. Reeves, I'm listening." Keanu looked at Andrew, who quickly averted his gaze before turning his attention back to the manager. "I want to talk about how you treat your customers, because I believe today can be a turning point, not just for me, but for everyone who walks through these doors." Keanu is about to propose a change that could alter how the store and its employees treat customers. Everyone in the store is attentive, waiting to see what he will do next. The showroom was quieter than before, but the tension was still palpable. James Carter, the manager, watched Keanu with a mix of curiosity and expectation, while Andrew remained in the background, visibly uncomfortable, trying to look busy. The other employees, pretending to organize papers or clean displays, stole glances at the unfolding scene. The customers, now more attentive than ever, pretended to be interested in the motorcycles, but were clearly waiting for the next chapter of this confrontation. Keanu took a few steps towards the manager, holding his helmet in one hand. His demeanor was calm, but something in his eyes made it clear he was about to address something serious. "Mr. Reeves," began James with a smile, trying to ease the atmosphere, "I hope the test drive was satisfactory. The bike is incredible." Keanu nodded slowly. "It's an amazing machine, no doubt, but before we discuss, there's something I need to address." James tilted his head slightly, indicating he was listening. "Of course, sir, we are here to address any concerns." Keanu took a deep breath and stepped forward, now facing not just the manager, but the entire team. His voice was calm, but filled with conviction. "From the moment I entered this store, I was treated as if I had no value. I was judged by my appearance, by the fact I was wearing simple clothes, and asked a question that apparently did not match your standards." James looked visibly uncomfortable, and Andrew, standing in the background, pursed his lips, seeming toyish. He could disappear. "I'm not against strict policies," Keanu continued, now looking directly at Andrew. "I understand the need to protect the store's assets and ensure people treat these motorcycles with respect, but what happened here was not just about policy, it was about judgment, about prejudice, and that is not acceptable." James opened his mouth to respond, but Keanu raised his hand, asking to continue. The bigger problem, he said, looking around. The showroom isn't the treatment I received, it's what this represents. How many other people have been treated the same way? How many customers have been driven away from here because they were seen as not up to par? This isn't just bad for business. Wrong, and if this continues, you're losing something much more valuable than money. You're losing the chance to connect people with their past passions. James took a deep breath, clearly struggling to maintain his composure. Mr. Reeves, let me start by offering sincere apologies. There is no excuse for any of my team's behavior that made you feel disrespected. I promise that this will be addressed internally. Keanu shook his head. I'm not interested in apologies. I don't want Andrew to be punished, or for this to end with a simple sorry for thy inconvenience. I want something bigger. I want this store to be an example of how businesses like this should treat people. James appeared confused. And what exactly do you suggest? Keanu crossed his arms, taking a more firm stance. I propose that you implement a training program for all employees, not just about customer service, but about empathy and respect. Teach your team to see customers as people, not just as numbers or appearances. And I want you to take this public show that you are committed to making this store a place where anyone from any background can come in and feel valued. The showroom fell completely silent. James pondered the idea, while Andrew in the background shuffled uneasily, as if wanting to excite situation but knowing he would be noticed. I understand what you're saying, James began slowly, and I admit, I've never considered something like this. I believe it's a valid proposal, but it won't be easy. Our customers have expectations, and changing our approach could be risky. Keanu gave a slight smile. The real risk is changing nothing. You have the opportunity to lead by example, to show that a business can be profitable and still treat every customer with dignity. I'm not asking for the impossible, I'm asking for something necessary. James remained silent for a few moments, his eyes shifting to Andrew and then to the other employees who were now watching him intently. He knew this was not just a private conversation. It was a moment that could define the future of the store. Finally, he nodded. Mr. Reeves, you are right. This is something that needs to be done, and if it means improving our customers' experience and changing how we are perceived, then it's a risk worth taking. James stepped forward and extended his hand to Keanu. I accept your proposal. Starting today, we will work to implement the changes you've suggested. I will speak with my team immediately and develop a plan to ensure this store becomes a positive example. Keanu shook the manager's hand, finally allowing a slight smile to appear on his face. Thank you. I look forward to seeing how you turn this into reality. James turned to the employees, his expression now more firm. I want everyone to know, starting today, things will be different. We are going to rethink how we treat our customers and what we're present as a company. Andrew, who was still at the back of the store, seemed petrified. He avoided looking at Keanu, but it was clear he felt the weight of what had happened. James gave him a stern look. Andrew, we will talk later about your behavior today. This does not reflect what we want as a company. Keanu glanced briefly at Andrew, but said nothing. He knew the salesman had a lot to think about when Keanu finally left the store. The atmosphere had completely changed. The customers and employees who had previously watched in silence began to applaud discreetly. Some smiles were genuine, others were of relief, but everyone recognized that something important had happened there. Keanu put on his helmet and climbed onto the Harley once more, gently accelerating as the engine revved, waved to those present before departing, feeling that he had achieved something greater than just acquiring amateur cycle. That day, as he rode back to the film set, Keanu reflected on the power of small actions to bring about significant changes. He knew the journey that had begun there was just the beginning, and as the wind blew against his face, he wondered, in how many other places could people be inspired to rethink how they see and treat others? If you enjoyed this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience.